You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, isn't it?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday in the Quad Cities. Monday, January 5th, our first show of 2026. Thank you guys for joining us. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we appreciate that. Make sure you get on the chat. Join us as we have a loaded first show of the new year. So if you have questions for guests, if you have comments, if you have opinions, if you want to make fun of me or yell at me, it's all welcome to head to the chat on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. It's the first show of 2026. Hopefully everyone had a great Christmas, a great new year as well. We're also live on X. X has been very, very good to us. So if you are joining us on X, same thing. Your feedback is always welcome. So make sure you're tweeting or posting back at me, however you call it nowadays. Also, we're available on all the podcasting platforms as well. So if you want to listen to the show and you don't want to look at me, I completely understand that. You can go to anywhere you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Podbean, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, head there and put in Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, and you can listen to the show each and every day as well. Also, a happy new year and a special welcome to our viewers in Central Iowa. We are up every single day. You can see the show at 7 p.m. on the WHO streaming app in the Des Moines area and the Central Iowa area as well. So welcome to a new year of OTA. A lot of great things to get to today and this week as well. It's a big week here on the show. Coming up tomorrow will mark our 1 year anniversary of doing Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. I thought about doing a big show and celebrating tomorrow. It's weird. It's a Tuesday. It's the middle of the week, all those kind of things. The goal right now is to have a great show tomorrow. We're excited about it, but maybe go on location Friday and do a show Friday from a fantastic sponsor that has been really good to us the first year as well. So we'll figure all that out today. Andy's probably listening. So yeah, Andy, you're going to get a phone call. I owe you one, and we'll chat, but that's the hope maybe moving forward to this week. But it's crazy to think because coming up tomorrow, and I'll talk more about it tomorrow, it's a year ago that I decided to do this stupid stuff, and I can't thank the sponsors enough, the people who've watched enough, all of those kind of things. It went way better than expected, which is awesome, and it's completely because of you guys for doing this and listening to this and watching this every single day. So we'll get more to that tomorrow. Pat Anger will join us tomorrow. He was on one of the first shows, probably the first show I'm pretty sure that I did. And so we'll have him on tomorrow as well. In fact, I'm sure he was on the first show. So we'll have him on tomorrow as well. A bunch of stuff tomorrow. We'll get to that then and talk more about the 1 year and all that kind of stuff coming up. But we've got a really good show today, a really exciting show. Over the weekend, if you're an Iowa basketball fan, you watched Iowa beat UCLA at a really jam-packed Carver Hawkeye Arena. The atmosphere was awesome. If you couldn't get to Carver Hawkeye, you watched it on Peacock, and you heard my guy Jess Settles on the color commentary. One of the best in the business. Obviously a former Hawkeye great, played, I think, 32 years at Iowa. No, I'm kidding, Jess. Played at Iowa, was an amazing basketball player, and then obviously doing it and spreading his knowledge as a color analyst, and he does a great job. I mean, I'll tell him that when we talk to him here in a few minutes, but he really is one of the best in the business. So he's going to join us here in a matter of moments to talk about a signature victory for the Iowa Hawkeyes, getting that big victory at Carver against a nationally ranked team, that brand, UCLA, and kind of what's going right for Iowa, what he likes. And then we're going to look ahead because it's Iowa-Illinois week. The Hawkeyes and the Illini, and he played in great games between those two teams in the past. It's a great rivalry. It's not what it used to be, unfortunately, because they don't play every year in football, which is cranky about us already. And they only play once this year in basketball. So we'll talk with Jess Settles coming up in just a matter of moments. Over the holidays, A couple days before Christmas, we lost a genuinely great human being, really good basketball coach in Coach Ray Swetalla, but also a great human being. Coach Ray will be missed by so many. Coming up later on hour number 1, former Augustana basketball coach, Grey Giovanine, will join us to remember the legacy of Ray Swetalla. Also, since we got Coach Ray, we're going to talk basketball and Augustana and what he sees from his former team and his former program as one of his former players. Jordan Delp is doing a fantastic job at Augustana. So that's coming up later in hour number 1 as well. In hour 2, we'll continue to look ahead. I like to say it's Iowa-Illinois week. You know, when Iowa State play, it's Cyhawk week. In the Quad Cities, it should be a big thing when Iowa and Illinois play. They play Sunday, 11 a.m. tip at Carver Hawkeye Arena. So we're going to continue to preview that with Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys. Also talk to Mike about the Fighting Illini. They have a new quarterback. They have a QB1. So we'll talk some Illini athletics, basketball, and football with Mike coming up here from Illini Guys in hour number 2. And then we'll wrap things up, as we always do on a Monday, with John Marx talking about everything in the world of sports. We'll remember a few people that are very important to us and then talk football. And that's kind of where we'll start, do a few headlines and then get to Jess Settles. But NFL-wise, the playoffs are officially here. The Bears are in the playoffs. They're a 2 seed. They don't feel like it's a 2 seed right now. They've lost 2 straight. They got swept by the Lions, as we do. But so, I mean, my kids are used to it. It's like, oh, the Lions and Bears played. How much did the Lions win by? And that happened again yesterday. I get it. It means nothing. The Lions aren't in the playoffs. The Bears are. I have to have a little bit of fun. But the Bears and Lions played yesterday, 19-16. Lions win that game. Both teams were playing, for the most part, everybody. Roma Doomsday out for the Bears. We'll see if we get him back, or if they get him back, not we. If the Bears get him back for the postseason. So he was out, but that was injury-wise. Other than that, everybody was playing. I mean, if the Bears wanted to make sure they get that 2 seed, and they ended up getting it because the Eagles lost. But that makes a difference. If the Bears win and the Eagles win, then they're round 1. If the Bears win, regardless, if they win against the Packers coming up this weekend, they'll be at home this weekend, or the next weekend, excuse me. So it was an important game, but the Lions dominated, basically. I mean, in the fourth quarter, the Bears, as they usually do, get down a couple scores, and they came back, and Caleb looked good for 2 series. Other than that, he did not look good, and no one can tell me in any way, shape, and form that Caleb Williams was a good quarterback yesterday. He as teams do in the NFL, they get down a couple scores late in the fourth quarter or in the fourth quarter, and it becomes a little easier on the offense. And they had 2 good drives. And other than that, it wasn't very good. He didn't get to the 4,000 yards passing that Bears fans wanted. And they didn't run the football. The Bears ran for 65 yards, which was really surprising considering the Lions haven't been able to stop the run, especially in the last couple weeks. 2 weeks ago against the Steelers, they ran for 250 on the ground against the Lions. So was surprised by that. But anyways, Lions get the victory. Jared Goff continued to look like the best quarterback in the division. Yes, he was awful against the Vikings with a bunch of turnovers, but for the most part, he's been really, really good all season long. The Lions ran the ball for 122, and yes, they only scored 19 points. The Bears did a good job in the red zone, preventing touchdowns, limiting to field goals, and they're going to have to do that against the Packers, I think, on Saturday night, because the Lions get the victory. They finished the season 9-8, and how about all this? Everybody in the NFC North finished above 500, which is crazy. I wish my team was the one that was 11-6 and won the division and not 9-8. But the Lions going to the postseason. We'll talk about them later. Nobody cares about my Lions. But the Bears now have to refocus. They get that team coming from the North. And the Packers rested a lot of people. They had nothing to play for. Jordan Love will be healthy. He should be ready to go. Josh Jacobs got some much needed rest. He should be more healthy, better this time around. Still no Micah Parsons, but the Bears have to figure out a way, and we'll talk more about it later in the show, to stop people. The Lions, I think, punted once. And I don't know if the Niners punted the week before. So that's a problem. They're giving up a ton of yards. So if they maybe they can outscore people the way they looked yesterday against a Lions secondary that's back up, and across the board, everybody's backups. They didn't look great. So, but no reason not to be happy, be excited. Bears fans, you're in the postseason. You won the division. A lot to be excited about. I'll say this, and nobody cares about next year, but the Bears have to, and I think they will, they have to get better next year, regardless of what happens this year. They have to improve their roster next year, and I have no doubt they'll make moves to do so. But this isn't a finished product, and to be 11-6 in year one with Ben Johnson and be in the postseason is fantastic. So if you're a Bears fan, if you're a Bears hater, it's not great. But anyways, enough of that. Also, college football wise, we mentioned the transfer portal in full swing. The Illini have a new QB1. Caden Hauser is the quarterback transfer from East Carolina. We'll talk with Mike Cagley later in the show about that. They're in for several transfers. One big transfer news from Illinois leaving was Cole Rusk, former Rock Island standout, and a young man that was on my first show last year. And we're going to get him on once he finds a new place to go, but he's leaving the University of Illinois. He's a very talented young man that I think can play pro football. Wasn't getting Illinois doesn't throw the football to the tight ends too much. And so I think more of an opportunity to make the most of his last season. I know it was probably a tough decision. In fact, I've heard from several people that, he loves the University of Illinois. It was a dream to play there. So we'll talk more about that coming up later with Mike Cagley as well. Iowa has 3 new transfers in the last 24 hours. Where's my transfer list? This morning they picked up Bryce Stevenson. He's a defensive tackle from Holy Cross, started 3 years there. Again, the defensive front loses a lot of guys. Graves, Herkett, Llewellyn, Jonah Pace, all gone. Brian Allen transferring. So there's plenty of snaps to be had up front for the Hawkeyes. Last night, Eli Osick, kicker from North Dakota State, commits to Iowa. Really good numbers there. So there's your Drew Stevens replacement. And then Anthony Hawkins, I think the best player of the 3 they've gotten so far. Defensive back, 6'3" from Villanova. A lot of teams wanted him. A FCS freshman All-American. He's got 3 seasons left. 59 tackles, 9 pass breakups, 2 interceptions for Villanova this past season. So the start of the reshaping of the college football rosters are already underway all over the nation as well. We'll talk more football here in a second, but we will start today talking college basketball with an extremely familiar face. So joining me, one of my favorite people, and I'm not kidding, Jess, you're one of the, if not the best color analyst in all of college basketball. And I'm not saying that because you're an Iowa guy wearing the hat. I think you do a great job. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining me once again. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate the kind words. It's been a good year. Congrats to you. We were just talking before the show. Tomorrow is your 1-year anniversary from this very successful show. As you know, very difficult to be successful in this category. There's a ton of competition. Media is changing rapidly. A lot of cuts. Tough to get sponsors. But your people in the Quad Cities have stepped up, and you've delivered a great product. And I can't imagine. What do you got? Caitlin Clark on tomorrow? Is that who you're going to celebrate with? I mean, it can't be Pat. You can't have Pat on tomorrow.
He begged, Jess. It was sad. I said,
Yeah.
he comes on
It's not
every Monday he comes on, and he's called me yesterday. He's like, I don't want to do Monday. I have to do Tuesday. You're so special to me. It was sad. Tears in his eyes, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate the kind words. It's been fun.
Thanks, buddy.
And I get to do whatever I want. I only have one boss, and she's my wife. And she's
it's amazing.
Very important, and she's happy, I'm happy. So let's talk basketball. You were at Carver Hawkeye on Saturday for the game with UCLA. You're on the call on Peacock. First, before the basketball, you went into that place and it looked fantastic on TV. I know there's some students students are home for break and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, that place was packed and it was loud. Your thoughts on seeing Carver look like that again before we get into the basketball stuff?
It was great, right? It felt a little bit like old times, and I know there have been some big games in there over the last 4 or 5 years, but it just with the new McCollum era, he needed a signature win, right? They had Michigan State obviously didn't work out. It doesn't work out for most teams. And then they felt like they really messed one up at Ames, which would have been an elite win. Iowa State could win the national title. So it just had that feel. You got the UCLA Bruins with all that history and tradition and those sweet uniforms coming to town. They're a top 15 team. They took Arizona and Gonzaga down to the wire. And so it just had that vibe. We finally got a Saturday late afternoon game. The schedule is just so tough to navigate for fans these days. So it just felt like everything came together, and the guys delivered. I mean, they played extremely well right off the opening tip. I saw people in the arena I haven't seen in years, former coaches, high school coaches, people who I was with at Iowa. Just so a lot of people had their kids home from college, time off from high school, and just said, let's go to an Iowa men's game. And that's phenomenal. And then I guess they just came out. They're going to have a Sunday noon game with Illinois. So that should be even better.
You look at it, Jess, and it felt like, I don't want to say an audition for Iowa fans again, but it felt like, hey, this was the time we were going to go. Let's see what you got. And for Iowa to deliver on the court, it's important standing wise and quad 2 victories and all that kind of stuff we can talk about. But seeing is believing for fans, and to show up and to see Iowa deliver with a victory, it seems important to me. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on your show for the last year, and when you were in television, the non-conference schedule has just been garbage, and that's half of your battle, right? You got to bring in a product. If people are going to spend a couple $100 and take their kids and drive through the snowstorm, you got to bring in products that people want to see, and it just has not been there. And look, this net ranking system is really a mess. And the short of it is you're basically trying to play teams that are ranked like 325th in the net and beat them by 30. And then when you do that, you go down in the ranking, which is a good thing, right? So you're trying to manipulate the system. So then you play a team like Drake or Northern Iowa, which you would sell out the arena. Well, if you beat them by 5, it doesn't help you. And if you lose to them by 1, it darn near destroys your entire season as far as your non-conference rankings go. So it's not even in the spirit of competition, which is why you've noticed these teams, when they play in these non-conference garbage games, they're trying to blow the team out, and they're not even putting in the 2 walk-ons, the kid who's recovering from injury, a Jacob Cook. They're not even getting any run until the last minute because they're trying to blow these teams out. So that being said, McCollum addressed this a few press conferences ago. I don't know if you were there, but you've got to get the Kansas States, the Creightons, the Marquettes, the regional teams into Carver Hawkeye. Obviously, you have to win, and then the Big Ten schedule takes care of itself. But UCLA, because we're not used to them being in the Big Ten, it just almost felt like this world-class non-conference battle between the Bruins and the Hawkeyes, and it had that old feeling. And not to stand on the porch, but back in the 80s when I used to go to games, and the 90s when I used to play, there was some just monster non-conference elite games in Carver, and that's really what people want to see, and that's what they're going to demand.
Yeah, and they got it on set. That's a great point, because it did feel different. It felt like this is UCLA. It's a brand. It's a national brand. So that first half, Jess, it was important to get off to a good start. Iowa did that. It seemed like they could do no wrong. But at one point, gosh, I looked at it, and there was maybe like 2-3 minutes left to go in the half. They'd given up like 12 points. And I know Iowa, it's like Iowa fans embrace defense and punting in football. Like, I feel like Iowa fans are embracing defense in maybe tenfold because of some of deficiencies maybe in the last couple of years when it comes to that end. Yeah. And that's no slight at Fran. I mean, they could score with the best. Take me through that first half. They did everything right. And I mean, they scored it and they made shots, but defensively, I thought they were elite defensively. Unfortunately, UCLA was elite defensively probably in the second half, but we'll get to that in a second. But first half, Iowa was elite, especially on the defensive side of the floor.
it's just the defense is just ferocious, right? They're swarming, they're in a stance, their hands are up. I mean, he can flat out coach defense. And you're exactly right. I mean, as a man of the people, and you talk to people on the street and with your shows, and that's 99% of the comments that I get over the last couple of weeks are we're so happy to see great defense. I mean, it's 99%. So that's all anybody wants to talk about. So this is a UCLA team, and when I watched them on tape studying this game, I was like, whoa. You got some McDonald's All-Americans. You got some athletes. I think the notes said that they had scored 40 points by halftime in 9 of their 12 games coming into the Iowa game, right? So they can score, as we saw in the second half, and Iowa just jumps on these teams, and they can't run their offense. They fight over ball screens. They're in help position. They're closing out. Obviously, Iowa takes great shots, and so you force them to defend. So far, so good, right? And I talked to Mitch Cronin before the game, and this was another thing that really hurt UCLA. They did not play a game after Christmas. The last time they played was December 23rd, and the Big Ten scheduling is bizarre. I couldn't quite understand the logic behind it, but he basically could not get a game. So you can imagine those guys being off for 2 weeks. They're going home for a week. You're eating Christmas food and they're going out with the guys and doing whatever you do. I mean, every team in the country comes back on like the 27th or 28th and plays a game. Well, their first game back is at Iowa, so he couldn't get that done. But I thought that really hurt him. But it's Cronin said something like I keep telling my guys like you got to be. So something like you got to be patient with their patience. So if you take bad shots, Iowa's going to really hurt you, and you're not going to turn Iowa over very often. So just every possession is going to matter. Well, they come out and Iowa just took everything away from them and won the game in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, to be up but you knew, Jess, that UCLA was going to punch back. And watching this season, I've really enjoyed the season. The 2 times I didn't feel great about Iowa basketball was Michigan State, and that was Michigan State and all of those kind of things. But I go back to the Grand Canyon game after they'd beaten Mississippi. And the second half, they won, and they played well maybe the last couple minutes. I think they won by 10 or whatever. But they struggled offensively in that second half against Grand Canyon. And I felt they got great looks. I mean, they did. Ball movement was great. They got great looks. And they weren't making shots for those first 10 to 12 minutes of the second half. What did you see in the? You knew UCLA was going to punch back. What did you see in the second half? They weren't going to win by 40. Your thoughts on Iowa's maybe struggles early in the second half, most of the second half against UCLA?
Yeah, that's a great point. See, I didn't see much. I saw the highlights from the Grand Canyon game, so I didn't know we struggled right at the beginning of the second half. And so, I think Iowa State put a 16-0 run on us to start the second half.
Yeah.
So now UCLA does. So, that's a trend you don't love. UCLA had really physical guards, and they take you out of a lot of your stuff. Their front line is tough. They basically have 2 all-conference level players. They're big, and then Dent out on the perimeter. I just think I couldn't tell the adjustments, honestly, to be able to let your viewers know what that is. I do know they got us in some really spread out pick and roll, and Dent was hitting some really tough mid-range jumpers. Cronin, was fascinating, but we get the opportunity to go to the shoot-arounds, and I'm going to say the first 20 to 25 minutes of the Iowa shoot-around, McCollum was out on the court, and the entire thing was how to keep Dent out of the paint. I mean, just rep after rep, footwork. This is what we have to do. We have to attack him. We can't, because if Dent gets in the paint, as we saw in that second half, he's really, really tough. And then, on the flip side of it, talking to Cronin, he's like, I've been on Dent for the last 2 weeks to take that mid-range jumper, because in the Mountain West, there aren't any, you don't have the Zach Edey's, you don't have the Kofi Coburns, you don't have these big, huge guys inside protecting the rim. So he could get to the rim anytime he wanted. Well, in the Big Ten, you can't. So that was really the game within the game. And it seemed like in the second half, Dent was just like, I'm going to start pull up, take mid-range jumpers, little faders. And we had a hard time with that. Now, that being said, Bennett Sturt was probably the best player in the country in that game. and he's shown he's so much better than what he even looks on TV.
It's funny because I was going to bring him up because it was almost like, and he had the 4 fouls and he went out for a little bit. And almost like he came back in and said, "All right, I'm tired of this. This thing's done." And it got to within 4, I want to say 6 or 4, 5. It was close. And he came in, made a little hook floater, probably was a foul, made some elite passes. And that's the thing about him is I think if people watch the shooting and the scoring, his passing is amazing. Just him, you mentioned him being one of the best players in the country. Didn't it feel like that's what elite players do is, all right, this is getting close. It's time to finish this thing. He was a finisher on Saturday, wasn't he?
Yeah, so I mean, you've been in the business for so long, right? And you drag that camera around to high school games, middle school games, college games, small college, NAIA, junior college. I mean, you get it because you've been to thousands of games. I don't know how you describe the guys who are just so much better down the stretch than other guys. Is it toughness? Is it fearlessness? Is it skill? Why can the Andre Woolridges of the country, the Io DeSumos? Why did they play better in the last 5 minutes? I don't know. It's how they're raised. It's what their basketball DNA, the film they study. But he's definitely in that category of just closing out games, making everyone better. I played with J.R. Koch, Cooper's dad, at Iowa, and we had a great dinner the other night after the game. Coop and J.R. and a bunch of his friends and stuff from over in Illinois. But I remember when JR was drafted by the Knicks, he worked out with the Phoenix Suns, and that's when they had Jason Kidd. And he was down there for a couple days, and I remember him coming back to campus saying that I had him talking about himself. He said, "I'd never played better basketball in my life." And I was like, what do you mean by that? He goes, "I played with Jason Kidd." He goes, "I played 2 days of pickup basketball and scrimmages with Jason Kidd, trying out for the Suns." And he goes, every single time I needed the ball in the perfect spot, he got it to me. He goes, "I'd never gotten easier buckets in my life." So the whole point of that is Bennett Sturts is like Steve Nash. He's like Jason Kidd. He's one of the best passers you'll ever see in your life. He passes it with both hands. And I would ask Pat Anger, what that means when you pass it with both hands, but I know he wouldn't be able to let the people know. So you can ask him that on the next show.
Exactly.
But he just makes the pocket passes, the skip passes, makes everybody around him better. Yeah. And the guys get wide open shots, and he's clutched down the stretch. That was just a brilliant performance. I mean, the shots he hit in that game were much needed because in those games, Matt, I have to stay neutral, which is part of the profession in the conference games. And I'm just trying to observe this down the stretch, and what you just mentioned. I think when UCLA cut it to 4, I was like, what in the world did Paul and I say, to Iowa fans if they blow this game? I mean, it felt like it was on the brink.
No, it did. I felt the same thing, and he came in and made plays down the stretch. Iowa gets that victory. Jess Settles joining us on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Big picture this for me, and I want to talk about Illinois coming in, and it's that rivalry for us here in the Quad Cities. You know it growing up where you grew up. No love lost. They don't play in football every year anymore, which drives me crazy. So they didn't play football this year. It feels I think they only play once this year in basketball, unless they play in the Big Ten tournament or something like that. It's a big deal. Before we get to the X's and O's and what Illinois has been doing and what you've seen from them, just the rivalry itself. What was this like when you were there? And I think it's still here. It just needs to be stoked a little bit because it's not played as much as it was back in the good old days, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Look, you should have, I'm trying to think, you should probably have like Paul Lusk, who's an assistant at Purdue, or Wade Lookingbill, who's in the media business in Des Moines for high school. Those guys were in it during the Deion Thomas scandal, Bruce Pearl. You should have Coach Pearl on, right? Yeah. Because it's such a fascinating story. And I've heard it a few times, but it starts to fade. Deion Thomas is a good friend of mine, and he worked at the Big Ten Network. And so we've been out to dinner a handful of times, and I just start drilling him about, the car and recruiting and Jimmy Collins and Coach Luke. It's unbelievable, but that really, it went from a rivalry to really bad blood on the recruiting trail, as you know. Yeah. And it got to the point, I believe there in the late 80s, early 90s. I think Coach Davis, I think they were actually staying at hotels outside of Champaign just for safety reasons.
I would believe it.
That's where it got. So, both teams accusing each other. And Illinois back in the day had just pro level players, right? They had Nick Anderson, they had Kendall Gill, they had Bardo, they just had some elite Chicago, Marcus Liberty, and then Iowa. You got BJ Roy and Ed, and then you're coming off the Lute era, and Lute tried to recruit Chicago. It is a tremendous rivalry. I think the last time Io and Luka Garza played, I think both of them came on the air and said, let's not sugarcoat it. We can't stand each other.
Yeah.
So it got lame for about a decade in there. And then Brad Underwood and Fran McCaffrey, because of their volatility, because of their competitiveness, because they wear their emotion on the sleeve, they threw the fuel back on the fire, and now it's good again. And ironically, I think there was a picture floating around the internet the last couple of days of Brad and Fran hanging out in Philly 2 days ago. They must have played at the Palestra, and Fran came over to the game. So I give credit to those two for making it fun again. But this is going to be a monster game. I mean, if you're Iowa, you got to win this game, and it just it sets your resume on fire.
You look at it, Jess, after this, they go to Purdue and Indiana back to back.
Yeah.
So obviously getting 2 victories, and it's never easy any night of the Big Ten. They have Minnesota on Tuesday, but we'll forget that game. We'll let Nicholas Spear is going to try to come on tomorrow. We'll let Nicholas talk about the Gophers tomorrow. Iowa, Illinois, 2 good teams, 2 nationally ranked teams. What do you see from Illinois? We've kind of talked about Iowa, and we know what Iowa is. Illinois, very talented European players. I don't know if you've called one of their games. If you have to, make sure you get your pronunciations correctly, because it's like a European all-star team. Every Illini fan I talk to says they struggle defensively still, which is ironic that Iowa might be the better defensive team. What does Iowa have to do on Sunday to win? What does this matchup look like? What are the keys for maybe one team or the other?
Yeah, the guards for Illinois are just really good. Not, what do you say? They maybe not quite as experienced, but then when you look at their resumes, they've already played like professionally a couple years. I have not covered them or studied them. I know McCollum. I always ask him what the keys are to the game at the shoot-arounds, and every single time this year he said rebounding first. They're undersized, Iowa is, so they have to keep Illinois off the glass and those second chance opportunities and keep them out of the paint. And then it just looks like the formula is Sturtz is going to have to play, 20 plus point games. Like when he struggled at Iowa State, when he struggled at Michigan State, when they're throwing bodies at him, he's going to have to get in the paint and wreak havoc and hit some threes. But it should be a great game. And I know Nebraska beat Illinois at the buzzer. And that's probably what it's going to take to beat them.
Yeah, it should be a great college basketball game. Before I let you go, you mentioned JR and probably some fancy steakhouse you elite people go to. Elite media head off to. Cooper, he's been on the show 3-4 times, and he was on the radio show for the Hawkeye tailgate show, football wise, which was a blast as well. I watched him some in high school, and he could shoot it. I knew he could shoot it, and he was bigger, kind of like Dad. He's bought into the defensive side of the floor in a way that I didn't think maybe he would. What have you seen from him? And he's a guy at Iowa that he's a foundational piece, isn't he, for what's to come the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, he's fantastic. I'm so glad that he stayed. That was really tough on him because he's a friendship guy. He has great friends. So many guys respect him. And everybody left, right? So you're there for a freshman year. You get all these what you think are going to be lifelong friends, and you're going to hopefully play 2 or 3 years together, even though it's not realistic. But then, coach leaves, new coach comes in. Do you really fit in? Defensive-minded guy. I mean, obviously, Coop is not known for his defense. Average at best defensively last year, and then stays around. And McCollum really challenges you physically, challenges you mentally. So it's a tough transition. But you're right. He's become a good defensive player. And this Bilodeau guy for UCLA has been maybe the best stretch 4 or 5 player in the country over the last month. And Coop was on him a ton and didn't shut him down, but sure made life miserable for him. So he's totally bought in. I want him to shoot more. He's automatic from the corners, but he's just taken his role on and played a ton of minutes, and I'm glad to have him. We played JR and Coop and his grandpa and we played golf at Fire Lake there south of the airport in the Quad Cities this summer a couple times, and man, he hits a long drive and he's a great golfer, but he obviously has lived in the gym and it's paid huge dividends for him.
He had the biggest defensive play of the game, Jess, with that charge. He drew that charge late in the game, and that was absolutely huge. Speaking of golf, Cooper is going to come down and golf at my dad's golf outing this year, is his hope. And that sounds like a good foursome. Jess, if you could find some time in June to honor my late father, I'd love to have you. A lot of Hawkeye fans up here and everything else, so I'm gonna bug you.
I'll plan on coming to that. You text me the information, and we'll try to roll up in there in the quad. Where are you playing it at?
Highland Springs in Rock Island. I don't want to brag, but Anger and our team won a couple years ago. Some people think
How many clubs did he break?
Some people think we cheated. Some people, there's rumors out there that there was cheating going on. But it was me, Jake Gervais, Pat Anger, Joe Conklin. Like those 4. That's an elite foursome. How can you beat that?
Well, look, if you're going to give yourselves 5 extra strokes that nobody else gets, and you're not going to penalize Anger for breaking clubs and throwing clubs, you're probably going to have a good chance of winning.
Jess, I appreciate you as always. Be busy. Keep doing great stuff. I'll bug you again soon. And thank you it's amazing because technology is a thing, and I figured out what the hookup between us wasn't working. But thank you for updating all that kind of stuff. And we'll catch up with you again soon. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Jess Settles, former Iowa great. And I'm telling you, one of the best color commentators in all of college basketball, joining us, getting ready for Iowa, Illinois this weekend. I know each team has a game. I get that. But we're going to look ahead. We can do that as media. And then also he was on the call at Carver, Iowa, beating UCLA this past weekend. Coming up on the show, we're going to stick with the basketball. Former Augustana coach Grey Giovanine is going to join us, not just to talk a little Augie, but we're going to remember the great and Coach Ray Swetalla, who passed away over the holidays, talk about his legacy and much more. It's on OTA. We'll be right back. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo. Now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high, each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfathers is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday in the Quad Cities. Of course, it's the first off the air of 2026, which is crazy to say. Tomorrow will mark our 1 year of doing shows, which I didn't think I'd make it 1 month, more or less 1 year. So a lot of exciting stuff this week as well to get to. One of the big stories that happened, unfortunately, over our break or the holidays was we lost a legend in the Quad Cities when it comes to basketball, whether it's high school basketball, college basketball, getting workouts, just the game of basketball lost a legend as Ray Swetalla passed away after a 15-year battle with cancer. And one thing, I lost my dad to cancer after, same thing, 10-ish year battle with cancer. And I remember people would say to me, oh, I saw your dad lost his battle with cancer. And I said, no, my dad didn't lose anything. And I a few times I heard people say Ray Swetalla, Coach Ray lost his battle with cancer. Ray didn't lose anything. Coach Ray didn't lose anything. He kicked cancer's butt for 15 years, but unfortunately passing away 2 days before Christmas at the age of 74. And we've been celebrating him around the Quad Cities. And I wanted to make sure that today, our first day back, that we celebrated Coach Ray as well. And joining me now to talk more about him is another familiar face, and he'll hate this, but another Quad City basketball legend as well, former Augustana coach Grey Giovanine. First and foremost, thank you for doing this. I appreciate you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Matt, and congratulations on the 1 year anniversary. That's terrific, and I've had, as I said, a great chance to watch what you've been doing, and hats off.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I want to talk a lot about Coach Ray and kind of remember him, but I know people will see you on the air and say, where's he at? What's he doing? Does he so kind of update people a little bit. You were in the Quad Cities. You've been around a little bit. You're not far from the Quad Cities.
We've made it home and have really enjoyed it. And as far as what I'm doing, you can see in the background there, the picture on my wall is a car that I put on a track. And I actually work with an Augustana alum now, bringing some of the best university students in the country to introduce them to careers in motorsports.
Wow.
And a former player at Augustana named John Doonan is the president of IMSA, and IMSA is the sports car division of NASCAR.
Okay.
And so we have road races. The WeatherTech Championship Series is our premier series. And so, we're at the Daytona and Indianapolis and all the great racetracks around the country. And so I work with some universities and some great students in the motorsports industry, which you and I were just talking a minute ago about getting out of your comfort zone, doing something new. That's new to me. Now, I've always enjoyed putting that car on the track and having some fun. But so anyway, it's kept me busy, having fun. And then I spent a lot of time following the former players of mine that are still involved in the game and all over the country. And so it's been fun to kind of sit back and enjoy following them.
I'm going to catch up with you on Augustana basketball, get your thoughts on another former player in a little bit, but I want to focus on Coach Ray. Obviously, you knew him well. I got to know the man. He's such a good human being, and I think we can talk not two sides, but when you talk about the basketball coach and the basketball side of Ray, you can't forget about the human being and what kind of person that he was as well. When people ask you about Coach Ray, what will be the thoughts? What will you remember the most about him?
Well, you talked about his passion for the game was unparalleled. I mean, if you wanted to talk back, he'd spend as much time as you wanted, and he had great insight. He had been around some great people, some great coaches. Really kind of came for that Bobby Knight foundational experience for him, and then worked with some great people. But he just had he loved being in the gym. I mean, if ever there was a definition of a gym rat, it was him. And so I had coached a couple of his players from Davenport Central. Guys, if you remember, Zach Larson was one of my first captains at Augustana who had played for Coach Ray. And so I got to know him a little bit then. And then I had begun to recruit his sons. And then he ended up on our staff at Augustana. And the time he was with us at Augustana, he really challenged me to, and you know, again, talked earlier about getting out of your comfort zone. He not second guess. I mean, challenged me in a really healthy way for a coaching staff. He wasn't a yes man. He wanted me to help justify or think through why we were doing things a certain way, and that really forced me to grow as a coach. And as far as the development of the players, there just wasn't anybody better. He knew how to teach fundamentals and from a third or fourth grader to a great college player. He really had a great ability to communicate the game and how it was to be played, and he did it with a great enthusiasm. Usually there was a story to be told along the way. You didn't have a lot of short conversations with Coach Ray.
No.
And but just a big-hearted guy. He loved hoops. He loved being in the gym. He loved being around people that enjoyed the game. And I said this, the first comment I commented, he loved his kids. He had 3 beautiful children, 2 of his sons that played for us, and his older daughter, Britton. Just tremendous young people of them, and is involved in their lives. Again, more so even than his love for the game. But yeah, he was a hoops junkie. And in my 20 plus years in the Quad Cities, I don't think there was a more influential person in terms of the basketball community. Because when you think about Ray, well, he coached in high school in the Quad Cities. He coached in college at Marycrest at Augustana. He ran youth camps. He started the Illinois high school, Illinois-Iowa All-Star game. He was in a gym constantly. When he was sick with cancer and he'd go to Iowa City, he's at Iowa's practice, before or after his chemotherapy. I mean, he just really enjoyed being in the gym and loved the game.
You mentioned his long conversations. I enjoyed the heck out of them. And one of the longer ones I had with him was I asked him, because I didn't know he got his start under the general, Bobby Knight. And we had a great conversation about it. And you mentioned, you brought up Bobby Knight when you were talking. I think people think Bobby Knight and remember the chair throwing and all the craziness. What are the things that he got from Bobby Knight that maybe you saw or that maybe influenced him as he got into this crazy world of coaching that you guys were both in?
Well, I think, the Bobby Knight legacy, I think, is a complicated one. But the one thing you can't argue is his understanding of the game and his ability to teach fundamentals and his ability to get players to commit to what he wanted them to do. And so I think those are probably things that Ray took with him, an understanding of the game, concepts on defense, on offense, and transition, but really the ability to teach fundamentals and, I would say, motivate. One of the best quotes I ever heard somewhere along the line in my career was, it does, as a coach, it doesn't matter how much you know, what can you get your players to do? Because I've been to some clinics, at the highest levels, and you hear some guys that just kind of wow you with all their information, but can they get their teams to play a certain way? And I think that's probably one of the influences that Coach Knight had on Ray Swetalla was his understanding on how to connect the fundamentals to the production on the floor. I saw him do that certainly with our players at a really high level.
You mentioned him being a dad and now a grandfather. Obviously, I remember talking to him recently around the Iowa-Illinois shootout, and he's like, "I'm going up to Chicago. I'll be in Chicago because of those grandkids as well." Can you talk more about that side? You mentioned it a little bit, but I think people think Coach Ray and basketball, but anybody who knew him knew that family was it was basketball, and then family was just so far above it. It was his number one priority.
No question. You didn't have a conversation with him, I didn't, in 25 years, where there wasn't some reference to Dane, Nate, Britton. And Britton, his older daughter, has 2 sons, and Matt, they are frighteningly resemble Dane and Nate.
Wow.
So, her 2 sons are just like her 2 younger brothers were. Look like him, act like him, move like him. And like my wife said yesterday, she looked at the 2 grandsons and said, "Oh my gosh, you can see Ray Swetalla all over them." I mean, just their features and even their disposition to some extent. But yeah, he was crazy. And again, his daughter told a great story about the Dane was playing in Australia, and Ray would set his alarm for 4 a.m, every game. And he watched Dane play in Down Under, for a decade. And he ended up moving to Indiana to be closer to his daughter, who was in the suburbs, and his older son, Nate, who was in the Valparaiso area. So, yeah, there was I can't tell you how many video. And I told his 2 little grandsons yesterday, they're like 13 and 11. I sat them down. I said, look, you guys, I've known you guys. I've been seeing pictures of you guys and videos of you guys jumping off the couch, dunking in mini hoops since you were 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
I said, I know you guys from your grandpa Ray. And of course, they loved hearing that. But yeah, he was over the moon with his kids, and then now three grandsons that he's awfully proud of.
Absolutely. He was proud of Augustana College. And that's one thing he was always, even still to this day, every time I went to Carver, like Coach Ray would pop up. And so can you talk more about like